Hello, YouTube. Welcome to my channel where I discuss marriage, politics, and/or sports. Today's gem is a follow-up to my previous podcast debunking the notion of toxic masculinity. I wrote a piece against this notion of toxic masculinity back in November of 2021. I list one of the main culprits as the continued rise of feminism and its role in the emasculation of men in order to foster a gender neutral society. I'll be playing a piece of a short clip between successful YouTuber Jedediah Bila and British podcaster and rapper Zuby. I also will be adding some commentary as it plays. Feel free to listen to my previous podcast after you finish this one. I also will add the original piece, one pager that I did with my on a Facebook link to the comment section. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. I would thank you for your support, and of course, it's all free for you to do that. Um, without further ado, I'm gonna play that clip for you. I'm gonna start the clip, and you can listen to it for yourself.
First of all, do you feel that feminism has ruined men and women? Because I do.
It's helped with their ruination.
Okay, so what do you think the negative impact of, I use the phrase modern feminism, but the more research I do, the more I find that feminism, as I thought was well-intentioned, often wasn't.
Yes.
And the destruction of the family was at the core of a lot of what was going on, even, way back in the day. But what do you think the negative effect has been first on women?
Yes. Wow, there's so many ways to go into this one. I would say fundamentally, what has happened is both men and women have been brainwashed and propagandized into believing that there is something inherently wrong with a man being masculine and a woman being feminine. Mm-hmm. So I'd say that it's brainwashed people to go against their biology and go against their nature and their natural God-given inclinations and tendencies and ways of being. And it's forced women into a masculine frame, mm-hmm. whilst also taking men out of their natural masculine frame. And with that comes a huge number of problems on every level, from the political to the social to the cultural to the individual to, I'd even say, health, right? Because the truth is, men and women are different, first of all. Mm-hmm. So something that's most confusing about this age that we live in is the mixed messaging and the contradictory messaging. So in the modern Western world, you're simultaneously supposed to believe that men and women are essentially the same, mm-hmm. but also very different. Mm-hmm. And also just social constructs, and neither one really exists.
Oh, that's my favorite.
You're supposed to believe them simultaneously.
Right.
So depending on what the situation is, I'm supposed to act like men and women are literally the same. Like we're exactly the same.
Right.
We have the same interests. We have the same way that we process our emotions and use reason and logic. We're mm-hmm. physically capable of exactly the same things. But then also I'm supposed to believe that, it's very different because men are actually all part of the patriarchy and women are oppressed and are this right. victim class. But also you ask, what is a woman? And they're like, a woman is anyone who identifies as a woman. A man can be a woman can be a man, a woman can have a penis, a man can have a vagina, a man can get pregnant. And it's like, clearly, anyone who knows basic logic knows that all these things cannot be true. And the truth is that obviously men and women are different. We're the same species. So, we have much more in common generally than we have different. But the differences are extraordinarily important. Without those differences, all of us actually cease to exist. None of us could exist if these fundamental differences didn't apply. We're a sexually dimorphic species. And we understand this. And men are typically drawn to the feminine qualities and traits in a woman, just like women are typically drawn to the masculine characteristics in men. But people are being brainwashed into thinking that there's something wrong with that.
Right.
There's something wrong with that, right? If you are a woman and you don't want to compete with men on every level and in every sphere and in every sector, right? Then that's a problem. Maybe you're a sellout, or you have internalized misogyny or whatever. If you're a man,
It's got all the code words.
yeah, if you're a man and you really want to, you're very much in your masculine frame, you're probably toxic, or you're probably sexist somehow, or you're a misogynist, or you're this or you're that. And it just creates a lot of unnecessary conflict and confusion. And downstream, this, as I said before, everything leads to depopulation, right? It reduces the probability that males and females are going to couple up and reproduce and actually get on with each other. I think that the differences between, I don't just acknowledge that there are differences between men and women. I celebrate the fact there are differences between men and women. I think that's what, like, one of those beautiful things about the human species and in society. I don't look at women as some type of defective men, and it would be wrong to look at men as some type of defective women, or look at little boys and all their energy and their behaviors and think, oh, you should be more like girls. We need to change you. There's something fundamentally wrong with you, to the point you're even putting people on drugs. We need to change your natural state of being to conform to this weird box. And it just leads to a lot of misery. And I think that, nowadays, you have so much talk of mental health and depression and anxiety and this and that and trauma. And it's like, there would be a lot less of that if people were not constantly sold on BS narratives that go completely against nature. I would argue go against God, go against everything that we know to be true. I'm very much in favor of egalitarian laws, right? As in, whether you're a man or a woman or whatever, in terms of the opportunities that you have and the things that you're able to pursue, I'm very much in favor of cool. Like, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. However, we know, because men and women are different, if you give people freedom of choice, they're not all going to make the same decisions. They're going to make very different decisions on an individual level. We know this. I mean, even if you have siblings or people in the same family, they don't all end up in the same careers and doing the same jobs and earning the same money, having the same hobbies, interests. That's on a family level where you share genetics. So why on earth would someone expect that if you expand this out to hundreds of millions or billions of people, that you're going to get the exact same thing? It's why it's so goofy when they're trying to do there's only 30% women in this thing, or we need more women in, right? And it's so goofy. It's so stupid, because that's not how it works. You can either have the freedom, or you can force people in some type of fake equity, but you can't have both.
Let me stop it right there. Just want to add that this is a fair use of Jedediah's content. So it's fair use. Now she's going to come up and she's going to say her piece. And there's nothing I can add that will, make anything that Zuby said more profound. I mean, he was straight to the point. You could listen to that over and over again. He's right on point. We got this big issue out in the diaspora between men and women, and it's across the board. And especially in the West, right? It's mostly in the West. So without further ado, I'm going to get back to the tape for fair use and let Jedediah say her piece. She has a very good podcast, and folks can go look her up and subscribe. I like her stuff. She talks about the Matrix and the powers that be, kind of pressing in on people. And so she's pretty good. So I listen to her a lot. So here goes. I'm going to play it. So here's her part.
Women have internalized a lot of those differences to mean weakness. So I think what happened was women were lectured, from the Gloria Steinems of the world, from the feminists, and told, you have to compete with a man, otherwise you are the weaker sex. And I think we internalize that. So rather than look at what makes a woman beautiful, femininity is now thought of as weak. So, I grew up not wanting to be the Sarah Connor from Terminator 1. I wanted to be the Sarah Connor from Terminator 2 because I had internalized a lot of that feminism where it was like, no, I need to be doing the pull-ups. I need to be doing this. I need to be doing that. The reality is she needed that machine gun, by the way. So, it's you internalize a lot of these things. We got that question earlier where someone asked about, how do you embrace that femininity? I think you really have to sit back as a woman and recognize that even if you're pro-life, even if you're not towing the line of the hard left feminists, myself included, we have internalized a lot of these ideals. And I myself had to sit and say, why did I for so many years view femininity as weak? Because I was told that it was weak. And I was told that I need to be able to go to the gym with the likes of Zuby. And if I can't kick your butt, I'm doing something wrong. When instead the message should be like what I think about now. I went, the other day, my husband and I worked out. My husband is such a badass. He's fit, he's strong. I tell women, I love health and wellness. Get in the best shape you can for yourself. Be fit, be healthy, and then be lucky enough to have a man next to you who can run rings around you physically, because that is he is your best weapon against the matrix. That's not telling women, you're weak. That's saying in this particular area, just know the differences. And you know what? When it comes time to have a baby, you're going to be that superhero. You're going to be able to carry that child and nurture that child and give life to that child and grow that baby's fingers and toes. And somehow women have been taught that being able to have a child, you're not a superhero for doing that.
Oh gosh, then it's even the opposite. It's not just, it's actually an inversion.
It's like you're maligned. Yes.
Yeah, it's an inversion. It's that's a burden, right? Everything is
So let me stop it once again, because we're coming close to the conclusion. I'm going to let it play after this. So Jedediah said her piece, and she's coming from a female's perspective, and something a man can't do. And, there's a lot of women who think the way of the feminists, and it's been very, very destructive for us to build families and to build societies. And we just, in the Black community, we don't have to go any further than the inner cities. Now, she's not just talking about the Black community, by the way. So let's get that straight. Zuby might be a brother, but they're talking about the population, the Western population as a whole. The Black community just happens to be like a microcosm and a portent of things to come in the future. So I'm going to let this play out, and, then we'll wrap it up, and I will just post this. And people, please, like, share, subscribe, and make some comments. Let me know what you think, because I'm trying to I'm new at this game. I'm just trying to get better at it.
From, birth control to abortion to this to that. It's all, again, like I said, it's actually forcing women into the masculine framing that, okay, you're kind of defective because you've got the capacity to, get pregnant and breastfeed and whatever. So actually so you can compete with men, not cooperate. So you can compete with men. We need to neuter these biological functions. This function, this thing that creates life. That
the most
is the
beautiful
reason we're all
thing.
Here. Yeah, like that's something we need to neuter and take out of the equation. And to me, that is, of course, people are going to make arguments from liberty perspectives and rights and this and that. But I'm like, man, if you think of what that fundamentally is, to me, that's not. I don't see any empowerment there. I don't see any empowerment there, and it's all this frame. It's all masculine framing. That's actually why it's so funny, because you've got all these, these feminists and rah-rah, and it's like you're all obsessed with masculine framing. They themselves are trying to force females to compete with men in all of these areas. And look, on a basic level, men and women are meant to be cooperative, right? We're all the same species. You need both sexes to create new life and to have families and to have balance in society. We're not supposed to be at each other's throats all the time and fighting each other. Like, that's not how it's supposed to be. And I think millions of people have just been brainwashed into this competitive framing. I don't view women as my competition at all in like anything. Really, like I don't. I'm just.
We would be some sad company. I mean, in areas of like physical. I mean, and you became famous. For people who don't know, you became famous. Tell people the story about how with the deadlift.
Okay.
If for people who don't know, because it's interesting,
Yeah. So back in February 2019, I broke the British women's deadlift record. I said that I identified as a woman while I was lifting the weight, And
Let me ask you, how hard was it for you to do that?
not very.
There you go.
Not
So
very.
this is, but see, women have now internalized, like if I'm a feminist and I'm sitting here and I hear you say that, I've been programmed to be triggered by that.
Yeah.
I'm somehow supposed to be upset that that wasn't hard for you. And that means I'm not doing my job. I'm supposed to be working harder. And they don't accept the reality that it doesn't matter how hard I work biologically. I am not designed to beat you at deadlifting.
No.
It's not going to happen.
No.
So maybe I can beat you at something else, like giving birth to a baby, but I'm not going to beat you at deadlifting. And I just, it's actually, when you talk about frame, and I know the audience is very familiar with that, I see an increasing number, we show panels here all the time, an increasing number of men in a feminine frame and women in a masculine frame, and none of them are happy.
No.
They all look miserable.
It leads to misery.
If you want to watch the full episode, you're going to click right here.
So that concludes her presentation. And of course, she says she has a full episode with a whole lot more to it. I'm not going to present that here, but I just want to get this point across how it's connected to the piece that I put out previous to this. You know, so I'm not the only one talking about it. So I guess I'm just trying to validate the fact that I'm not going crazy. And I see some things out there that we should talk about more often. You know, I mean, people don't talk about it, and the impact of feminism on our relationships, on masculinity and femininity for that matter. So with that, I'll just say once again, please like, share, subscribe this content, and we'll go from there. All right, everybody, over and out.